Princess Hana stood in the crystal chamber of her father's palace, her hands trembling as she held the official decree. The words on the holographic document seemed to burn into her eyes. She was to be married in 6 weeks to Commander Juin Park of the Terran Coalition, a human, the human they called the Merciless One. Her father, Emperor Tijun, watched her with sad eyes. He was a tall man with silver skin that shimmered in the light, as all Valrians did. His telepathic presence usually brought comfort to Hana, but now she felt only his regret and guilt washing over her mind. I am sorry, my daughter, he said quietly, but this is the only way to end the war. 3 years of fighting has cost us too much, too many lives lost, too many families broken. Hana wanted to argue, to scream, to refuse, but she knew her duty. She was the third daughter of the emperor. Her 2 older sisters had already married for political alliances. Now it was her turn. She had always known this day would come. She just never imagined it would be like this. Tell me about him, she whispered, though she already knew the stories. Everyone in the galaxy knew the stories. The Emperor activated a holographic display. The image of a human male appeared before them. He wore a dark military uniform covered in metals. His face was stern with sharp features and cold eyes. His hair was black and cut very short. He looked young, perhaps in his early 30s, but his expression made him seem ancient. Commander Juin Park, the Emperor began. He is the youngest fleet commander in human history. He has won 17 major battles. He destroyed the entire Keeleran raider fleet at the Battle of Nova 7. 400 ships gone in a single engagement. He took no prisoners. Hana felt her stomach turn. 400 ships, thousands of lives. He refuses all surrender offers during battle. Her father continued. His enemies call him merciless because he shows no hesitation, no weakness. The humans call him a hero. Why would the humans agree to this marriage? Hana asked. If he is such a great commander, why would they send him to marry an alien princess? Because the humans are tired of war too, her father replied. And because this marriage will create a permanent bond between our peoples. You will be a symbol of peace, Hana. Your children will carry both human and Valan blood. Children. Hana had not even thought that far ahead. The idea of bearing the children of this merciless warrior made her skin crawl. Her sister Maya entered the chamber. She was the eldest daughter, married to a prince from the neighboring Sorvan system. She rushed to Hana and embraced her. I heard the news, Maya said, her telepathic voice full of concern. Oh Hana, I wish there was another way. There is no other way, Hana replied, pulling back from the embrace. Father has made his decision. The council has approved it. The humans have accepted. It is done. For the next hour they discussed the arrangements. The wedding would take place on Sanctuary Station, a neutral diplomatic hub at the border between Valrian and human space. There would be representatives from both civilizations. The ceremony would blend both cultures, traditions. Hana listened to it all with a growing sense of dread. When the meeting finally ended, she retreated to her private chambers. The room was beautiful, with walls made of living crystal that responded to her emotions, currently pulsing with anxious purple light. She activated her personal data terminal and began searching for information about humans. What she found did not comfort her. Humans were terrifying creatures. They came from a death world called Earth, where the gravity was crushing. The atmosphere was toxic to most species, and predators lurked everywhere. Humans had evolved as hunters with forward-facing eyes designed for tracking prey. They could run for hours without stopping, a trait called persistence. Hunting, they healed from injuries that would kill most species. They could eat almost anything, even food that was poisonous to other races. And worst of all, humans were completely silent to telepathy. Vaurians could sense the emotions and surface thoughts of almost every intelligent species in the galaxy, but not humans. Their minds were like black voids, impossible to read for Hana, who had relied on her telepathic senses her entire life. The thought of being married to someone whose emotions she could never feel was terrifying. She found videos of human soldiers in combat. They moved with brutal efficiency, their weapons cutting through enemy lines without hesitation. She watched footage of the Battle of Nova 7, where Commander Juan Park's fleet had surrounded the Caloran raiders. The humans had given no quarter, no mercy. They had simply destroyed everything. But then she found other videos too, humans helping rebuild planets after natural disasters, human doctors working in refugee camps, treating alien patients with gentle hands, human teachers in schools across the galaxy, human artists creating beautiful music and art. Which was the real human, the warrior or the healer, the destroyer or the builder? A chime at her door interrupted her research. It was her childhood tutor, Lady Borum, an elderly Vaurian with wisdom that came from centuries of life. Princess, she said softly, I heard about your marriage. Everyone has heard, Hana replied bitterly. I am sure the whole empire is gossiping about it. Many are concerned, Lady Borum admitted. Humans are unknown to us. We fear what we do not understand. Then help me understand, Hana pleaded. Help me understand how I am supposed to marry a creature I cannot read, cannot sense, cannot trust. Lady Borum sat beside her and took her hand. Fear makes monsters of strangers, child. Perhaps when you meet this human, you will find he is not the monster you imagine, or perhaps I will find he is worse, Hana whispered. She looked at the holographic image of Commander Juan Park again. Those cold eyes stared back at her from across the galaxy. In 6 weeks she would stand beside this man and pledge her life to him. The thought filled her with terror. Somewhere out there, the merciless human commander was preparing for the same wedding. Hana wondered if he felt anything at all, or if his heart was as cold as his reputation suggested. The crystal walls of her chamber pulsed with deep blue, reflecting her sadness and fear. 6 weeks, that was all the time she had left before her life changed forever. Commander Juan Park stood on the observation deck of the battleship Horizon, staring at the stars. His reflection in the transparent steel showed a tired man in a crisp uniform. He barely recognized himself anymore. Still brooding? Captain Down asked. Walking up beside him, Down had been his friend since their academy days, one of the few people who could speak to him without formality. I am not brooding, Jiuan replied. I am thinking about the princess, about everything. Jiuan turned away from the window. Did you read the intelligence reports about Vaurian culture? Their customs are completely different from ours. Their entire society is built on telepathic communication, and I am supposed to marry into their royal family. Down laughed. At least you are studying. That is more than most soldiers would do. Ji-Yuan had been studying for the past 3 weeks since the marriage had been announced. He had spent every free moment learning about Valrians, their language, their history, their traditions. He had hired tutors to teach him their customs. He had practiced their formal greetings until his pronunciation was almost correct. But no amount of study could change the fundamental problem. He was human, she was Valrian. They were as different as two species could be. The crew thinks this is a mistake, Diane said quietly. They think the Valrians are using you as a political pawn, that they will control you through the princess. The crew should focus on their duties. Ji-Yuan replied sharply, then he sighed. But they are not wrong. This is a political arrangement. Nothing more. Is that what you really think? Ji-Yuan did not answer. Instead, he pulled up a holographic file. It showed Princess Hana of the Valrian Empire. She was beautiful in an alien way, with silver skin that seemed to glow and large eyes that were deep purple. Her hair was long and white, flowing like silk in the image. Dr. Nari sent her psychological profile. Ji-Yuan said the princess is 26 years old. She is educated in diplomacy and xenobiology. She is known for her compassion and intelligence. She runs charity programs for war refugees. She sounds nice, Dunn observed. She also thinks I am a monster, Ji-Yuan said flatly. According to the report, she has been researching human military history, specifically my military history. She knows about Nova 7. Nova 7, the battle that had made him famous and feared across the galaxy. Ji-Yuan closed his eyes, remembering it had been 3 years ago. The Keltheran raiders had been attacking civilian colonies for months, taking slaves and resources. The coalition had sent Ji-Yuan's fleet to stop them. When they arrived at Nova 7, they found the raiders had surrounded a civilian station. 50,000 people were trapped inside, both humans and aliens. The raiders were using them as shields. Ji-Yuan had sent 17 messages demanding surrender. He had offered safe passage. He had given every possible warning, but the Keltheran commander had refused. He had started executing hostages, one every hour, broadcasting their deaths across all frequencies. So Ji-Yuan had made a decision. His ships had created a tight formation, using their shields to protect the civilian station. Then they had systematically destroyed every raider ship, moving with brutal efficiency. It had taken 14 hours. 400 raider vessels had been destroyed. Not one had been allowed to escape. Hostages had been saved, all 50,000 of them, but the galaxy only remembered the destruction. They called him Merciless. They said he was a killer who took no prisoners. What they did not know was that Ji-Yuan had nightmares about that battle every single night for 3 years. He had dreamed of those 400 ships exploding. He had ordered those deaths. He carried that weight. You did what you had to do, Dunnan said, reading his expression. You saved 50,000 lives. I know, Jan replied. The door opened, and Dr. Nari entered. She was a xenobiologist assigned to help prepare both Ji-Yuan and Princess Hana for their marriage. She was a short woman with kind eyes and graying hair. Commander, she greeted, I have just returned from the Valrian palace. I met with Princess Hana. I met with Princess Hana. I met with Princess Hana. I met With Princess Hana, Jiwon straightened. How is she terrified? Dr. Nari said. Bluntly, she is trying to be brave, but she is afraid of you, the Valrian. Propaganda has portrayed humans as monsters, and you specifically have a reputation. I am aware of my reputation, Jiwon said. Quietly, then you should also be aware. That reputation is not reality, Dr. Nari replied. She pulled up her own data. Files, I have spent the last 3 weeks researching you, Commander. Do you know what I found? I have amiss. Dre hasn't. We have demasked. I have spent here overseeing, I am sure. You will tell me. I found that you personally funded an orphanage on Sanctuary Station. You donate half your salary to refugee programs. After the Battle of Tarsus, you spent 2 weeks helping rebuild a civilian hospital. Even though you were injured, you visit wounded soldiers in medical bays. You write letters to the families of every person who dies under your command. Jiwon felt uncomfortable under her gaze. Those things are private. They should not be, Dr. Nari said firmly. You have let the galaxy believe you are merciless when the truth is far different. You are not cruel, Commander. You are principled. There is a difference. Extent, though. Princess does not know that difference. Jiwon said. Then show her. Dr. Nari replied. You have 3 weeks before the wedding. Use that time to be yourself, not the legend people have created. After Dr. Nari left, Jiwon returned to his studies. He practiced Valyrian phrases, stumbling over the unfamiliar sounds. He read about their marriage customs, their music, their art. He wanted to understand the woman he was going to marry, even if she would never understand him. Late that night he received a message from Earth. It was from the orphanage he funded. The children had made him a video wishing him congratulations on his marriage. They sang a traditional wedding song, their young voices cheerful and bright. Jiwon watched the video 3 times. These were the people he fought for. These innocent children who deserved a future without war. If marrying a Valrian princess could give them that future, then he would do it, even if the princess hated him, even if she never saw him as anything more than a monster. He pulled up her image again. Princess Hana looked back at him with those beautiful purple eyes. Somewhere across the galaxy, she was probably looking at his image too, wondering what kind of creature she was being forced to marry. I will try to be worthy of you, he whispered to the image, even if you never believe it. The stars outside continued their eternal dance. In 3 weeks, Jiwon would leave this ship and travel to Sanctuary Station. He would stand before both civilizations and marry an alien princess. He would become a symbol of peace, but first he had to convince her he was not the monster she feared and that he thought might be the hardest battle he had ever fought. Sanctuary Station was enormous, massive structure of metal and glass, floating in neutral space. Princess Hana watched it grow larger through the window of her transport ship. Soon she would be there. Soon she would meet him. Her hands would not stop shaking. Breathe, sister, he said softly beside her. You must appear calm when you arrive. Hana tried to breathe normally, but her heart was racing. In just a few hours, she would stand face to face with Commander Jiwon Park, the Merciless human, her future husband. The transport docked smoothly. Hana stepped out into a corridor filled with diplomats from both civilizations. Valrians with their shimmering silver Skin stood on one side, humans in there. Dark suits stood on the other. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut Ambassador Sunho, the human diplomat in charge of the ceremony, greeted her formally. He was an older man with gray hair and a warm smile that did not quite reach his eyes. "Princess Hannah," he said in perfect Valrian. "Welcome to Sanctuary Station. We are honored by your presence, thank you." "Ambassador," Hannah replied, forcing her voice to remain steady. "Commander Park has already arrived," Sunho continued. "He is waiting in the formal reception hall. Are you ready to meet him?" "No," Hannah wanted to scream. The walk to the reception hall felt like a march to her execution. Every step brought her closer to the moment she had been dreading for weeks. Her telepathic senses could feel the emotions of everyone around her: curiosity, anxiety, hope, fear. But ahead of her there was nothing. Blank space where the human commander waited, a void in her senses. The doors opened. The reception hall was grand, decorated with symbols from both cultures. Hundreds of people lined the walls, all watching, and in the center, standing alone, was Commander Jiwon Park. Hannah's first thought was that he looked different from his holographic image, smaller somehow, though he was still tall by human standards. His face was less harsh in person, with lines of tiredness around his eyes. He wore a formal military uniform that was dark blue with silver trim. His hands were clasped behind his back. When he saw her, something flickered across his face: surprise, nervousness. She could not tell because she could not sense him. Clear's throat, that blank void in her telepathic senses, was terrifying. They met in the center of the hall. Jiwon bowed in the Valrian style, one hand over his heart. When he spoke, his words were in Valrian, heavily accented but carefully pronounced. "Princess Hannah, I am honored to meet you. Thank you for accepting this arrangement." His voice was quieter than she expected. Gentler, Hannah bowed in return, using the formal human greeting she had practiced. "Commander Park, the honor is mine." It was a lie, but a necessary one. They were both playing their parts. The formal introduction ceremony lasted 2 hours. They sat beside each other at a long table while diplomats gave speeches about peace and unity. Hannah was acutely aware of Jiwon and LT Unk and GT's presence beside her. He sat very still, his posture perfect, his expression neutral. When a server brought them drinks, something unexpected happened. The young Valrian server was nervous, his hands trembling. As he approached the human commander, he fumbled with the tray and dropped a glass. It shattered on the floor. Jiwon immediately stood up. The server flinched, clearly expecting anger, but Jiwon simply knelt down and Clear's throat began picking up the broken pieces. "Please let me help," he said in Valorant. "I apologize if I startled you." The server stared in shock. Hannah stared too. This was the Merciless commander. This man who was apologizing to a servant for being startled. Jiwon carefully placed the broken glass on the tray and handed it back to the server. "No harm done," he said with a small smile. After the ceremony ended, Hannah and Jiwon were escorted to a private dining room for their first meal together, alone. The silence was heavy between them. "Your Valrian is very good," Hannah said finally, because someone had to say something. "It is terrible," Jiwon replied with a slight grimace, "but I am trying to learn. I want to respect your Culture, you studied our language for. This marriage for the past 3 weeks, yes. And your history, your customs, your art, but I want to do right by you. Princess, I want to be a good husband. Even if you can never care for me. His honesty surprised her. Hana had expected coldness, distance, not this quiet vulnerability. Why do they call you Merciless? She asked suddenly. The question came out. Before she could stop it, Jiwon and LT Unk and GTS expression became sad, because I make hard choices in war. I do not hesitate. When lives are at stake, people see that as cruelty, but it is necessity. The Battle of Nova 7, Hana said. You destroyed 400 ships. I did, Jiwon admitted. They were executing hostages. 50,000 civilians were going to die. I gave the raiders 17 chances to surrender. They refused, so I made a choice. He met her eyes. I would make the same choice again, not because I am merciless, but because those 50,000 lives mattered more than my reputation. Hana studied his face. She still could not sense his emotions, but she could see pain in his eyes when he spoke about that battle. You regret it, she said. Softly, every day, Ji-yoon replied, I carry every death I have ordered. That is my burden to bear. Their conversation was interrupted by alarms. Red lights flashed throughout the station. Security officers rushed into the room. Attack! One of them shouted. Someone planted a bomb near the Valerian quarters. Ji-yoon moved instantly. He grabbed Hana and pulled her behind him, shielding her. With his body, his hand went to the weapon at his belt. Stay behind me, he ordered, his voice completely different. Now, this was the commander. The warrior security forces swarmed the area. They found the bomb and disabled it. The attacker was caught, a Valerian radical who opposed the marriage. But during those tense minutes, Jiwon never moved away from Hana. He kept himself between her and any possible danger. When the threat was over, he finally lowered his weapon and turned to her. Are you hurt? He asked, his voice gentle. Again, no, Hana whispered. She was shaken but not injured. Good, Ji-yoon said. Then he surprised her by kneeling. I am sorry, Princess. I should have ensured your safety before the attack. This was my failure. You protected me, Hana said, confused. After the threat began, I should have prevented it entirely. He stood up slowly. I will have security doubled around your quarters. No one will threaten you again. As he arranged for additional guards, Hana watched him carefully. This was the merciless commander the galaxy feared, this man who apologized for not preventing an attack he could not have predicted, this man who had shielded her with his own body. That night, alone in her quarters, Hana thought about everything she had witnessed, the way Jiwon had helped the nervous server, the pain in his eyes when he spoke about Nova 7, the way he had protected her without hesitation. Maybe Lady Barham was right. Maybe fear had made a monster of a stranger. Maybe the merciless commander was not merciless at all. She still could not sense his emotions. That void in her telepathic senses still frightened her, but for the first time, Hana wondered if she had been wrong about him, if the legend and the man were two different things. 3 days remained until the wedding, 3 days to discover the truth about Ji-yoon Park. Princess Hana woke early the next morning with a decision made. She had 3 days to learn the truth about Commander Ji-yoon Park. She would use every moment. Her first visitor was unexpected. A human woman in military uniform appeared at her door requesting an audience. Her name was Commander Yunji, and she had served with Jiwon for 7 years, Princess Yunji said after the formal greetings. I asked to meet you because I wanted you to know the truth about Commander Park. The real truth, not the stories, please. Hana said, gesturing to a seat. Tell me. Anjai pulled up several holographic files. After the Battle of Nova 7, Commander Park used all his prize money to build an orphanage on Sanctuary Station. He visits every month when he can. The children love him. They call him Uncle Ji-Yuan. The hologram showed Ji-Yuan surrounded by children of various species, all laughing. He was smiling in the image, a real smile that reached his eyes. He looked completely different from the stern commander in his official photographs. 3 years ago, we were on a diplomatic mission to Talvex 4, Yunji continued. A local child ran into a crossfire zone. During a skirmish, Commander Park ran out to get her. He took a plasma bolt to the shoulder, protecting her. He still has the scar. Another image appeared. Jiwon in a medical bay, his shoulder wrapped in bandages but holding a small alien child who was crying. He was comforting her. He cries after every battle, Yunji said quietly. He goes to his quarters and he cries for the people he could not save. Then he writes personal letters to every family who lost someone under his command. He writes them by hand in their own languages. Do you know how many languages he has learned just to write those letters? Hana shook her head, unable to speak. 17, Yunji said. He learns a new language every time he has to write to a new species because he says they deserve to hear his apology in words they understand. Why are you telling me this? Hana asked. Because he will never tell you himself, Anjai replied. He thinks he does not deserve credit for basic decency. He thinks being a good person is just his duty. But you should know, princess, you should know what kind of man you are marrying. After Yunji left, Hana felt shaken. Every piece of information contradicted the legend she had feared. Later that day, her younger brother Kai-Wung arrived on the station. He was only 16, curious and brave in the way young people are. Within an hour of arriving, he had found Commander Park and challenged him to a strategy game. Hana watched from a distance as they played. Jiwon was patient with her brother, explaining moves and praising clever strategies. When Kai-Wung Min won their third game, Ji-Yuan laughed, a genuine sound of delight. You have a talent for this, Ji-Yuan told him. Have you considered military strategy as a career? Father wants me to study diplomacy, Min replied. Diplomacy is strategy too, Ji-Yuan said thoughtfully. Just with words instead of ships. You would be good at it. They talked for hours. Hana listened to them discuss everything from military history to music. Ji-Yuan spoke about human culture with passion, describing Earth's oceans and mountains with the love of someone who missed home. That evening, Hana decided to ask Ji-Yuan directly about the things that troubled her. She found him in the observation deck, watching the stars alone. May I join you? She asked. Of course, princess, he replied, making space for her at the window. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Hana gathered her courage. Tell me about Nova 7, she said. All of it, not the official report, the truth. Jiwon was quiet for a long time. Then he began to speak. The raiders had taken a civilian station 50,000 people, men, women, children. They were using them as shields, as leverage. They wanted us to let them escape with their stolen goods and their slaves. His voice was steady, but Hana could see his hands clenching. I sent 17 messages. I offered them safe passage. I offered them trials instead of execution. I gave them every option I could think of, but they refused. Hana said they started killing hostages, one every hour, broadcasting it on all channels. Jewin closed his eyes. I had choice: let them escape and maybe kill all the hostages anyway, or stop them and save the innocents. So you destroyed them. I did. My fleet surrounded the station, protected it with our shields. Then we eliminated every raider ship. It took 14 hours, 400 ships destroyed. He opened his eyes and looked at her. We saved all 50,000 hostages, but I killed thousands of raiders. The galaxy calls me merciless for that. Do you regret it? Hana asked. I regret that it was necessary. Jewin said, I wish there had been another way. I have nightmares about those ships exploding, but would I make the same choice again? Yes, because those 50,000 lives mattered. Hana felt something shift in her understanding. This was not a merciless killer. This was a man who made terrible choices because someone had to. I cannot sense your emotions, she said quietly. Humans are silent to telepathy. It frightens me. I have relied on my telepathic senses my whole life. How can I trust someone I cannot read? I am frightened too, Jewin admitted. I am terrified of failing you, of not being good enough, of bringing you suffering because of my reputation. He turned to face her fully. I am just a soldier, princess. I know war and duty. I do not know how to be a prince. I do not know how to be worthy of someone like you. His honesty was painful in its vulnerability. Hana realized that he was just as scared as she was. My tutor, Lady Barham, told me something. Hana said. She said, fear makes monsters of strangers. She was right. Jewin replied, we are strangers. Different species, different cultures. But maybe we do not have to be monsters to each other. They talked until late into the night. Jewin told her about growing up on Earth, about losing his parents in the first war between humans and Vaurians. Hana told him about the crystal palaces of her home world, about her work with refugees. You run charity programs? Jewin asked with interest. For children displaced by war, Hana explained. I started it 5 years ago. We have helped over 10,000 families. That is incredible, Jewin said with genuine admiration. I fund an orphanage, but I have never organized anything so large. You must be very dedicated. They discovered unexpected common ground. Both of them cared about the victims of war. Both of them wanted peace. Both of them had been shaped by loss and duty. The next day, an ancient Vaurian named Elder Sman requested a private audience with Hana. The old woman was over 300 years old, bent with age but sharp with wisdom. Child, she said, I have reviewed the original intelligence reports about Commander Park, the ones from 3 years ago. I and Hana asked. The word we translated as merciless was wrong. Elder Salmon said the original Valyrian term was Nalian. It means uncompromising in the protection of the innocent. It is a compliment, not an insult. Our translators made an error that became legend. Hana stared at her in shock. You mean his entire reputation is based on a Translation mistake, partially elder. Salmon admitted, he is a fierce warrior. That part is true, but fierce in defense of others, not in cruelty. We created a monster from a protector because we did not understand the words. That night, Hana looked at Jiwon's official image again, but now she saw something different, not a cold, merciless commander, but a tired soldier carrying the weight of impossible choices. She did not fear him anymore. She respected him, and maybe, just maybe, she could learn to care for him too. One day remained until the wedding. The morning of the wedding, Princess Hana received an unexpected visitor. Chancellor Hyan, the Valerian political leader who had opposed the marriage from the beginning, appeared at her quarters with a formal document. Princess, he said with a bow, I come bearing important news. We have found a legal clause that can free you from this arrangement. Hana took the document with trembling hands. It was written in ancient Valerian legal script, but the meaning was clear. If she declared incompatibility before the wedding ceremony, the marriage could be cancelled. The peace treaty could be restructured without requiring her personal sacrifice. You are giving me a way out, she asked in disbelief. I am giving you a choice, Han replied. You are a princess of the Valerian Empire. You should not be forced to marry a human, no matter what your father believes. If you sign this document, you can return home today. The human will return to his people. We will find another way to peace. Hana stared at the document. Freedom. She could go home to her crystal palace, to her familiar life. She would never have to marry a man whose emotions she could not sense, whose culture was alien to her own. But she thought of Jiwon, the way he had protected her during the attack, the pain in his eyes when he spoke about war, his kindness to her brother, his dedication to helping orphans and refugees, his quiet vulnerability when he admitted his fears. I need to think about this, Hana said. Of course, Princess, you have until the ceremony begins. Han bowed and left. Hana sat alone with the document for a long time. Then she made a decision. She went to find Jiwon. He was in his quarters, dressed in his formal uniform for the ceremony. When he saw her at his door, concern crossed his face. Princess, is something wrong? I need to speak with you, Hana said. May I come in? Of course. She entered and showed him the document. Jiwon read it carefully, his expression neutral. When he finished, he looked at her with those dark eyes she had learned to read over the past 3 days. This is a legal way out of the marriage, he said quietly. You could leave. Done. Yes, Hana replied. What do you want to do? It was such a simple question, but it held so much weight. What did she want? Not what duty demanded, not what her father expected. What did her heart say? What do you want? She asked instead. Jiwon set the document down carefully. I want you to be happy, Princess. If this marriage will make you miserable, then you should leave. I will support whatever decision you make. That is not what I asked. Hana pressed. What do you want, Jiwon, for yourself? He was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I want to know you better, he admitted. These past 3 days talking with you, learning about your work, your dreams, I have come to admire you, Princess, your intelligence, your compassion, your strength. I think we could build something real together, something beyond politics and duty, but only if you want that too. Ace, ace, ace. His Hands were trembling slightly. Hana realized that he was just as frightened as she had been days ago. You are afraid, she said softly. Terrified, Jiwon admitted. I'm afraid I will fail. That I will not be good enough. That my reputation will bring you suffering, but I am also hopeful. Hopeful that maybe we can create something good from this arrangement. Hana thought about everything she had learned about the translation error that had created his fearsome reputation, about his charity work and his kindness, about the way he cried after battles and wrote letters to grieving families, about how he had shielded her with his own body during the attack. She thought about Lady Baram's words, fear makes monsters of strangers. Jiwon was no longer a stranger, and he was definitely not a monster. I was so afraid of you, Hana said. For weeks I dreaded this marriage. I thought you were merciless and cold. I thought I would be trapped with a monster, and now, Jiwon asked quietly, now I see a man who carries the weight of terrible choices, a man who protects the innocent and mourns the guilty. Man who learned my language to honor my culture, a man who is brave enough to admit his fears. She took a breath. Now I see someone I could learn to care for. Hope flickered in Jiwon's eyes. You want to go through with the marriage? I want to make a choice, Hana said firmly. Not because I have to, but because I want to. I want to see what we could build together. If you are willing, I am willing, Jiwon said immediately. More than willing, Hana smiled for the first time in weeks. Then let us get married. The ceremony took place in the grand hall of Sanctuary Station. Thousands of people attended, representing both civilizations. Hana wore traditional Valerian robes that shimmered with crystal light. Jiwon wore his formal uniform, but he had added a Valerian honor cord that she had given him that morning. When they stood before the assembled crowds, Hana spoke. Not the prepared speech the diplomats had written, but words from her heart. For weeks I feared this day, she began, her voice clear and strong. I feared marrying a man I had never met, from a species I did not understand. Propaganda and legend had created an image of Commander Jiwon Park as a merciless warrior, a man without compassion or kindness. She turned to look at Jiwon. But the legend was wrong. The translation was wrong. The fear was wrong. What I found was not a merciless commander, but a principled warrior. Man who makes hard choices to protect the innocent, a man who carries the weight of those choices with humility and grief, a man who is worthy of respect and honor. She took his hand. I choose this marriage not because duty demands it, but because I want to build something real with this man. I want to prove that our two peoples can create unity from fear, peace from war, and love from duty. The hall was completely silent. Then Jiwon spoke, his Valiant still accented but clear. Princess Hana honors me with her choice, he said. I promise to be worthy of that honor, to respect her culture, to cherish her wisdom, to stand beside her as an equal partner. I cannot promise perfection, but I can promise honesty, dedication, and care. They exchanged vows in both languages, blending human and Valan traditions. When the moment came for the Valerian ritual of shared silence, Hana realized she was no longer frightened by the void where Jiwon's emotions should be. She did not need telepathy to understand him anymore. She had learned to read his expressions, his gestures, his words. The ceremony ended with both civilizations cheering. It was not just a political marriage. Anymore, it was a symbol of genuine unity of two people choosing each other. Across the divide of species and culture, that evening at the reception, Hana found Jiwon on the observation deck. Again, he was watching the stars, but he smiled when she approached. Thinking about everything, she asked. Thinking about how lucky I am, he replied. I expected to marry someone who would hate me. Instead, I married someone who chose me freely. I am the lucky one, Hana said, taking his hand. I found a merciful man where I feared a merciless one. They stood together watching the stars, two different species learning to be one family. 6 months later, Hana and Jiwon governed a joint colony on the border between Valrian and human space. The colony was thriving, a perfect blend of both cultures. Crystal architecture mixed with human engineering. Telepathic Valrians worked alongside innovative humans. Hana had expanded her refugee program with Jiwon's help. Together they had helped over 30,000 families find new homes. The orphanage Jiwon funded had opened a second location on the colony. Their marriage had become legendary for different reasons now, not as a forced political arrangement, but as a true partnership built on respect and growing love. One evening, Hana found Jiwon teaching a group of Valrian children about Earth's constellations. He was using a holographic display showing them patterns in the stars while speaking in fluent Valrian. Later, he found her in the crystal garden singing the traditional Valrian crystal songs. He sat and listened, even though his human ears could not hear all the frequencies. I love listening to you sing, he said when she finished. Even though you cannot hear it properly, Hana asked with amusement. I hear enough, Jiwon replied, and what I cannot hear, I can see in the way the crystals respond. Everything glows brighter when you sing. Hana moved closer to him. I never thought I could love someone I cannot sense telepathically, but I was wrong. I know you, Jiwon. I know your kindness, your strength, your fears, your dreams. I do not need telepathy for that. I love you too, Jiwon said softly. It was the first time either of them had said those words. They sat together as the binary sunset over their colony, painting the sky in colors that neither human nor Valrian had ever seen before. A perfect blend, just like their marriage. Hana had feared marrying a merciless human. Instead, she had found a merciful man, and in finding him she had found a future she had never imagined, a future built not on fear or duty but on choice, trust, and